Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And this week, we're talking Lost Caverns of Ixalan and all its related sets: Commander, Jurassic Park, special guests, etc. And we're gonna go over some of the best cards in the set, and we'll throw in a couple of our sleeper picks as well. So join with me is Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How are you doing, Seth?
I'm doing good. This set's kind of ridiculous, so I'm super excited to talk about it.
Krim, the Asian Avenger. How are you doing?
Yo, pretty good. I am pretty excited to talk about the set as well.
All right, Tomer, Budget Commander. I believe you're very hyped for this set.
This was the most painful top 10 of my life. I've done this for many, many years, and I have so many cards I wanted to mention. So this is like all my babies, having to put them all and just get 10 of them on the stand. It hurts. But how are you doing, the Codfather?
I am Richard, the Codfather, and I am too very excited. All my cards got cut out of this top 10. Unbelievable. Spirited Companion did not make it.
No.
But I got a sleeper pick in here, so I'm very happy. So we're going to go into the top 10, but before we do that, today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. Card Conduit lets you skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing, and the curated service lets you send in as many cards as you want with buy list value $1 more, and you pay just a 5% service fee. You can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment once your order is processed. You can get 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. And we have a second sponsor, guys. It's us. We have a Patreon now. So you can head over to patreon.com/mtggoldfish. You can support us directly there. We have some sweet content for fans. Right now, we have a Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough with the four of us, the four of us sitting right here. And then we also have a video games bracket with the five of us, Phil included in that one. So check out patreon.com/mtggoldfish if you're interested. So let's get to it. So these are not presented in any particular order. So these are just generically, top cards. We chose 6 cards, which we think would appeal to most people. And then we each threw in a sleeper pick. So kicking things off is Dowsing Device. 1 in a red, 2 mana artifact. When Dowsing Device or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, up to 1 target creature gets +1/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. Then transform Dowsing Device if you control 4 or more artifacts. Tap it to add a red mana. Well, so the backside is a land. Tap it to add a red mana. 3 tap until end of turn. Target creature gains haste and gets +X/+0, where X is the number of artifacts you control. Activate only as a sorcery. Why do we like Dowsing Device? Is it because it sounds like Dowsing Dagger?
Well, I was
So-
hoping you'd love it, but yeah, for that.
I mean, it's not just because it sounds like Dowsing Dagger, and even flips kind of like Dowsing Dagger if you think about it. But really, like, haste is powerful. This is going to be at its best in an artifact deck where you're able to trigger this consistently every turn. But even non-artifact decks, or not like super heavy artifact decks, like equipment decks, let's say, are going to have a reasonable number of artifacts in them. They're going to have some mana rocks in them, most likely. You're going to be able to trigger this consistently enough, and being able to haste in your creature every single turn, that's a super powerful effect. And then once you flip it around, this turns into like a Kessig Wolf run almost. Like, this is going to be giving a creature for 3 mana and tapping, not just haste, but a big power boost. It's pretty realistic that this can be giving +5, +10 power. So I think this is just like, it's a good card unflipped, and then the backside ramps you, and it's a good card once it flips. So it's exactly what an equipment deck would want, right?
I think this card is absolutely insane. This is a 2, you can think of it as basically a 2 mana rock for your artifact deck that does so much more. Like, if I was in like an Izzet artifact deck, I would be seriously considering cutting, like the Izzet Signet at this point for this instead. It gives, if you're playing a bunch of artifacts, it pumps up all your team. It gives them haste. And then you just need 4 artifacts, and it itself is an artifact too. So you only need 3 other artifacts. It immediately transforms. You don't have to wait until like end of step or anything. You just play an artifact. It could even be like treasure or clue or whatever token things. Those all work as well. Immediately flips. You immediately get to tap it for mana. And if you don't need to tap it for mana, then it's a cranial plating that you can choose to pump even after blockers are declared. So if I attack with you with like an army of 1/1s and I have like 10 artifacts on the battlefield because I'm an artifact deck, and you block like all but one of them, I can pump the one that wasn't blocked, and then boom, you're like dead. It's just like for 2 mana, like 2 mana, it's wild. I thought it would be like a 3 mana at least, but no, 2? No way. Silly.
Is this that wild? I think it's just okay.
It's so good.
Like
It doesn't
Like-
seem like a crim card.
this is like so just average. Like
It's not
like, yeah,
draw go. That's true.
Okay.
It's not draw go.
You do know I play Magic outside of draw go, right? Like,
Yeah, you play
Like-
tempo control.
yeah, I play tap out control, which has creatures on top of that. But like, yeah, like this is just aggressively okay. But you know what? Look, I see it like it's in an artifact deck. Like, yeah, it could do some work there, but I don't know. It seems okay.
So are we talking in the context of artifact decks or like general decks?
It's got to be an artifact deck, right? Because like the biggest upside is flipping into an untapped land. Like that's what makes this card really good, right? Is a red card that is going to ramp you like a green card almost, where it's ramping as a land that's not going to get blown up by artifact hate. So I think you got to be an artifact deck to realistically be able to like flip it around. You're going to get value out of it while you're waiting by hasting in your creatures, hopefully. But I think you really want to be able to flip it into a land because that's the most powerful mode of this card, right? Is like being land ramp in a mono red deck.
Even the
Or
ones
is it
that are
accurate?
good.
I'm with Prim. This is decidedly okay.
Like, yeah,
Oh wow.
And so in an artifact deck, you are so powerful. There are like many powerful things you could be doing, and you are not desperate for the land ramp because you can ramp with artifacts, with treasures, and you're gonna get blown out by a Vandal Blast anyway. So like running a Signet is not really downside for you. You know what I mean? So like getting the hard land ramp in an artifact deck is not as important.
But isn't
And
this
then
one
also-
that'll... Okay, go ahead.
Like not all decks need a hasten their creature. Like it can do absolutely nothing as you like play your mana rocks, whatever. You like haste something and like nothing is hasting in, and then you untap, it becomes a land, and then you can pump something. Like I don't know, it's like decidedly average, and you can't do it at instant speed. By the way, Tomer, it's a sorcery pump, so you can't do it after blockers.
I missed
are
that
declared,
part.
but that doesn't
Still,
really change.
it gives it
so, I mean,
haste. It also gives it haste.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
So it's a big attack if no one has blockers, but it's okay. Like I don't know, is this really going into your equipment deck?
like
yes.
okay,
I don't-
maybe an equipment deck, but that's like also like artifact deck adjacent, right? But
Yes,
even
yeah,
then,
I mean, it's got to be some sort of artifact deck.
but like I don't know, it seems just okay. Like it's not a.
I'm
It's
interested
not
if you could
awful.
force this in a non-artifact deck. You're like,
Yeah.
No.
That-
Soul
Why?
Ring, Razor Tide, something, because you want the hard land ramp and you're
Wait.
willing to work for it.
Wait, you're like,
Like,
it's
is there
not,
some
it's
way to
not good
force
in
this?
artifact decks, but it's good in worse decks for it? What? I don't understand.
I don't even know if it's good in normal decks though. It's like or like an artifact deck, it's like okay, I guess. Like it
Because like you want to hasten Itali or something. You know what I mean? Like there's a point to this. In an artifact deck, you're like spamming Memnites or something, or you're spamming like random artifact eggs and stuff like that. Like the effect isn't as important. So I'm trying to force it as ramp.
Cityscape Leveler. There's artifact
Yeah.
creatures that want to attack.
Maybe you're right.
I mean, so it is worth mentioning, like, it does work with treasure token, blood token, map
Yes.
token, like all these artifact tokens. So I could see non-artifact decks, if they're built in a way that's going to be producing artifact tokens, be able to take advantage of it. Like a single dockside most likely flips this on turn 3. So if you're playing a bunch of effects like that, then this goes up in value. So maybe there are some non-artifact decks that can do it, but you need to have you got to have a plan to flip it. I don't think you can just throw it into a tally and be like, oh, I have 8 mana rocks in this deck. It's going to work out. Like you're going to need some like really ridiculously lucky draw for it to work out in that context.
And then if you're an artifact deck and you're like, oh, well, you're going to get Vandal Blasted anyway. Well, this is not going to get blown up to Vandal Blast. It's a lane. Isn't that what
logic
we're
is so
looking for?
weird to me. Like,
What?
oh
We're
my
looking
deck.
for?
not-
need to
it's
dodge
not
the
even
Vandal
the
Blast at
Vandal
all
Blast.
times. If you get wrecked by Vandal Blast, having one land on the battlefield is not going to help you.
It helps. I don't know.
It's
So I
better
think I'd
than
rather just
fucking
go
Vandal
all into
Blast.
treasures and try to end the game before the Vandal Blast happens.
All right.
Okay,
You're fine.
okay,
We're
okay.
undecided on this. We got to move on.
Okay. I mean, I think most people will like this
Undecided.
card.
Ugh.
The Indomitable, 4 mana blue legendary artifact vehicle. It's a 6/6 trample. When a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Crew 3. You may cast the Indomitable from your graveyard as long as you control 3 or more tapped pirates and or vehicles. So another Biden of Thassa. And I heard Biden of Thassa is a pretty good card.
It's so good. I mean, Binding of Thassa, if you look on EDH Rec, is like a top 30-ish, maybe 50-ish blue card. Like, some blue decks don't want it because you have to be creature decks. But in heavy creature decks that are in blue, it's one of the most played cards. This is just a strictly better, well, not strictly better. I guess, in theory, Biden of Thassa can make your opponent's attack. I don't know if I've ever actually seen anyone activate that mode. I guess it probably has happened before. But, like, this is a mostly better Biden, right? If you could only play one of those, you'd play the Indomitable over Biden because it can turn into a 6/6 trampler and you can get it back from your graveyard, potentially, depending on what deck you're playing. Worst case, you play 2 Bidens and you draw even more cards, and then you're super happy because you get to drag your Biden more often.
Of 4 mana thingamajigs. You got Toski, which is green. We're not going to count that.
Yeah.
And it's also a creature. We have in the Indomitable, we have Binding of Thassa, which allows you to, for 2 mana, tap, force someone to attack. And you have Reconnaissance Mission, which is an enchantment that can cycle.
And Coastal Piracy, the OG.
Coastal Piracy is 5 mana enchantment.
I
No,
will
it's
say
four.
that this is
It's
Wait, is it
4,
4?
I think. It
Yeah,
is
actually-
4.
It's the OG.
Oh, okay.
It has no upsides, but it is
No
4.
upside.
I
think-
will say that this is a very niche card. Like it's not like a generically good card. It's definitely meant for pirates and vehicles, right?
I don't know. I mean,
Because-
if you're just a go wide deck,
Sure,
you would play
but-
it. Like,
well, wait, why would I?
Reconnaissance Mission, Biden of Thassa is a very highly played card.
Right,
Let me
right,
double
right,
check
right.
Real quick.
But are those cards like better? That like is this better than those cards? Right? Like I do like that it's a vehicle. That part of it's nice.
I
like,
mean,
That's what I want to
it-
ask. So Krim thinks it's lower end, right? The other cards are better.
like yeah, like,
Reconnaissance Mission cycles as an enchantment. Biden can force an attack, and then this
Right.
one can crew and trample through. And then if you're playing pirates or vehicles, obviously this is like a lot better because you can recur it. But let's say you're not playing pirates and vehicles.
I think you can
think this
safely
is number
ignore the
one.
last text. Yeah, I think you can ignore the last
this
text
is-
and the fact that it can hit as a 6/6 trampler. You know, that's just the times that I activated Coastal, like I run Biden and Thassa a lot, and the times that I actually activate it is very, very low. Like I only used it in like my Furcrag deck because then it works with my commander. But like otherwise, for just forcing people to attack is generally not a good idea unless you have like Pillow Fort or ways of making sure they don't attack you, because it's not goad, it's just force to attack. Whereas like, yeah, if my Biden is suddenly a 6/6 trampler, that's great. I guess
And it-
Biden may be better in Enchantress because of enchantment, but that's it.
and it draws a card itself. Like the upside of that is you can play a creature with 3 power as Summoning Sickness, use that to crew, get in, and draw a card right away with your Biden. So it's even more card advantage. So I would rank this number 1 out of those cards. Even obviously for pirates or vehicles, it's like clearly number 1. But in a generic deck, I think I would still put this number 1.
I mean
Agree.
the 6/6 body is not something to like scoff at, but like I don't know. Like it seems cool, but like I'm just not huge on it yet, and I don't know why that is. Maybe because
It's because you only ever have opposition.
right? That
agents on the
1/1 body
battlefield,
lets you
yeah.
just
Well-
rumble in on someone and draw the card.
Will you
even
not
though
put
it's
this
like
in
1/1.
rogues? You gotta
I
put
mean,
this
like-
in rogues.
but like I would put the cycler in, right?
Yeah,
I-
I think Cycler's number 1. I think Reconnaissance
Really?
is number
Yeah.
1. And then this is number 2.
You're not
No,
cycling or reconnaissance.
you never
mission away.
like if you're cycling Reconnaissance Mission, you are losing anyway. There is like you don't play that card because you're gonna cycle it any reasonable
So
amount of
typically
time.
when I play these decks, I put all of these cards in because you want a critical mass of them, but sometimes you get too many of them. So that's where the cycling goes away. Or like you don't have any creatures, right? You got to cycle it away. Or you're looking for an answer, you got to cycle it away. So I prefer the cycling over the 6/6 body trample. But then I think this is the second one. Plus, enchantments are hardier than artifacts.
That is true.
If that counts
it's
for
an
anything.
artifact.
This one's an artifact. And then Bident is artifact enchantment, and then reconnaissance is enchantment only.
But I like the forced attack. See, like I like the forced attack. I think that definitely moves the game along, and then also leaves people open.
No one uses it.
Well,
yeah,
you know,
we barely ever use it though. It's very
that's
rare.
Not my fault, right? Like, I use it, but like, probably we'll get attacked, but there's a reason for it, right? If you're ever activating it, there's probably something good coming out.
I mean, you wouldn't activate it if you think they're gonna attack you, right?
Yeah.
Like, you probably won't activate it in that case, but yeah.
You just got.
Bloodletter of Aclazots. Where's my bloodletter?
Bloodletter of Aclazots is 1 in triple black, right?
It's 1 in triple black, 2/4, and then when an opponent would lose life, they lose double that life. Is that
only during your turn? If an opponent would lose life during your turn, and it's a 2/4 flyer, So
yeah, it's a 2/4
it's a vampire
flyer.
demon. That's why.
I think this card is amazing. Right? Like, is this card not super sick? Like,
I like this card.
Yeah, like it does everything a deck that can play this will probably.
Is this the only black damage doubler? Like, this just straight up doubles damage.
Not a damage doubler. Loss of
better
life
than double damage because it works with
I know,
drain effect too. Yeah, it's like a one-sided
life
furnace
effects,
of
it
wrath.
works with damage because damage is loss of life. Are there other cards in black that do this?
There are.
I think there's like Archfiend of
them,
Depravity or something.
Most of them end step trigger. There's also part of like the Lorwyn cycle of enchantments where it's like on your end step, they lose life equal to the life they lost this turn or whatever. This is the only one I believe that does it immediately. It's like, this is formatted like a red card. It's a black card, but it's actually like formatted like a red card where just immediately you're doubling up your damage. I like this card because it's like super black heavy, so it's perfect for Grey Merchant, and it works with drain effects. So this is doubling up like Exsanguinates and Torment of Hailfires. Like, some of these big black finishers become like very, very good at ending the game when you have this on the battlefield. And it's kind of a 4/4 flyer on offense. Like, its stats aren't bad because it doubles its own damage as well. So
it's also
you
only
just
4
win
mana.
if you play this and then Gary.
Yeah, I
Probably.
like
it doubles the damage. It's
gross.
5 pips by itself, and then you also gain double the life. Like, that's where the end step thing matters, right? Because the loss of life happens at the same time, and you gain.
Oh yeah, you
double
gain
the
that
life.
much life.
So
you gain
just
that much life.
this. So just this into Gary on an empty board is what? Drain everyone for 10. You gain 30.
Right.
Yes.
Pretty good. That's
Yeah.
that. And then you probably have some more black mana symbols. It works with Nykthos. Like, is this a black staple? Like, that's I guess 2 questions. One is it a black staple? Like, if you're mono black, do you just run this for value? 2 is, can you play it outside of mono black? Or is that triple black cost? Like, does that scare you at all?
Fixes all. When you play black, it's like 5 color Orborg coffers, still a thing.
I'm not an Urborg believer, honestly. But like, I think
Best
2 color
card
is
in the
absolutely
game.
fine. Even 3 color with a really good mana base, you could definitely pull it off. 5 color, I don't know. That's kind of sketchy. I don't know. But I think it's really good. It's
I feel
also
like
4
we have
mana.
Urborg in every game we play. I feel it's a common enough card that even if you're just straight up 5C, you don't put Urborg in your deck, your opponents will randomly just play one and you can get it. Because I feel we see that card so often. My Moto lands tap for an annoying number of colors every time we play.
Yeah,
An annoying amount. I like that.
sure.
So Tomer's not a believer in 5C. So
No.
mono black for sure.
I don't think it's a
No.
5. In all seriousness, memes aside, I don't think it's a 5 color card, but I do think it's a good card.
Yeah, I don't think
Right,
it's,
like-
I wouldn't run in all my black decks either, by the way, but like I will run it in a good amount of them, and because it's just like generically powerful.
It also has 2 relevant creature types. If you look on EDH Rec, vampires is like one of the top 5 most played creature types, and even demons is like 15th or something. It's like relatively heavily played. It's got some cool new commanders from like the Warhammer set like a year ago. So I think that's another obvious home for this. Like, played in mono black, like the Devotion style, Carrick, Grey Merchant style decks, but also like Edgar, any vampire deck, I think, why wouldn't you play this? Any demon deck, like demons are so expensive. Just having a 4-mana demon is like very nice for a deck like that. So I think it fits in those as well.
Like it's absolutely nuts. I with how much life loss actually just goes on naturally, I just absolutely adore this card. I like
Although,
If someone cracks a fetch during your turn, you got.
oh yeah, that is the end of turn player. Also, you have Meatball Massacre, you have all of those other things on your turn, and all like the drain effects, obviously out of an Aristocrats deck. Like, there's a lot here.
yeah.
All right, Brass's Tunnel Grinder, 3-mana red artifact. It's a double face card. Legendary artifact. When it ETBs, discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards +1. At the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, put a boar counter on Tunnel Grinder. If there are 3 or more boar counters on it, remove those counters and transform it. The backside is a land. You tap it to add a red. Whenever you cast a permanent spell using mana produced by this card, discover X, where X is the spell's mana value.
Yeah.
Wild.
This is hold on. Okay, so enters the battlefield, discard any number of cards, then draw that many number of cards +1.
+1. So
It's Valakut Awakening. It's Valakut Awakening, except you get to fill your graveyard instead of putting the cards to the bottom. So the same exact effect, and then eventually it flips into a land that essentially cascades for free each turn, assuming you cast a permanent.
So the turn you cast this, you descend, because I'm assuming you like pitch something. So you need to descend twice more, and descend is put a permanent into the graveyard. So that cannot be a token, but it can be like a discard, it can be a mill, it can be something dying from the battlefield.
Crack a fetch land. Like
Crack a fetch.
Yeah,
that's
as
easy
simple as
mode.
that.
Yep.
So you play it, it will get a counter, and then you just wait 2 more turns before you flip it. 2 more end steps before you flip it. And then you have this powerhouse of a land. And the fact that it's a land also makes it more difficult to remove it too. And then you just constantly get to generate mana value and mana advantage and card advantage when you're discovering. Yeah.
We're in the strip mine
really
meta,
good.
right? Like you have to play strip mine now because of stuff like this.
Yeah,
I
so you
like
really
this
need
card.
to-
I think this card is absolutely cracked. Yeah. Yeah, I think we as these flip lands start happening, maybe Richard's right here. I think it's time to be in the strip mine meta.
I've been in the
and
strip
LD.
meta the whole time.
Okay,
I've been
well.
out of it, but
You never left the game? Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
even better though, you got to be in the Vesuva Thespian stage meta. You got to they do all the hard work, and then you just take the flip side, the lane side afterwards, you know? But yeah, this card, is this card like just a generic? Would you just jam this in most red decks, or do you have to have a specific archetype in mind?
How would you even build around this? Like you
Well,
have
if you're like a
sack outlet?
discard deck, you know, or
bad
Also-
maybe.
like artifact graveyard decks, Ozkier, like this fills a graveyard too with your reanimation targets, or like that's a huge upside compared to Valakut Awakening. So I think that would be the other home with like artifact graveyard synergies. You're trying to like ready things back from the graveyard or whatever. But I think I would play this in just any deck. I play Valakut Awakening is one of my like S tier MDFCs that I run in any deck that I can cast it in because I just think it's worth it. I think this is going to be similar to me, where it's slower to, you can't just play it as a land. That's the drawback. Like the upside of Valakut Awakening is you always have that choice of just like, oh, I need a land, I can play it as a land.
Turns.
But it's always just a mountain, essentially, a tap mountain at that. Like you're never going to get anything more out of the land mode. The land side on this is an absurd magic card. Like discover X for free every turn as you cast a spell is so much free mana, so much free value, so much card advantage that I think this is just a staple level card for me that I would jam in pretty much anything. And it goes up even more in those artifact like synergy graveyard decks.
Yeah,
It's definitely staple level.
Yeah, I think this is just a red card staple. Yeah, that's a pretty good way of putting that.
Yeah, I don't believe in the Valakut Awakening. I think this is Kodama's reach with
Oh.
Suspend. So if you were gonna chuck your hand on turn 3, you should have mulled, right? Like if you're trying to loot one card, like Faithless Looting is the turn. So I feel this is like, yeah, you do something, but you hard mode Suspend for 2 turns and get a land that's land ramp, and then it copies everything. So to me, this is like weird Kodama's reach in red, rather than like chuck my whole hand. Obviously, if you're reanimator or something, like that's very useful. But in generic deck, you probably shouldn't chuck your whole hand. And if you want to, you probably should have mulliganed. And then that is that.
You could just chuck one card though. I think by like
Yeah.
turn 3, you're gonna see like 3 cards. There's gonna be one that you don't need. You chuck that one or whatever.
I mean, you
But
have
I-
to kind of chuck one, otherwise you don't
Yeah.
get the descend, right? So you must chuck one probably.
I think this
Yeah.
is a card that is just like you're not gonna be upset putting it in basically any deck. And then if you're like an artifact deck, if you're self-mill or anything, if you can like add more counters to it or flip it faster, like all these things just make it like so much better, and then it just becomes disgusting.
I will say your permanent count does matter a bit. Like it might be bad in Spellslinger, like if you're playing a deck that's like almost all spells, because we're kind of treating the descend like it's just going to naturally happen, which in a lot of decks it will with fetch lands and so forth. But I don't know if I was playing like a Niv Mizzet deck or something, maybe that would be a deck where I wouldn't play it just because I wouldn't be confident I could get permanents into my graveyard enough to flip it.
That's fair.
Well, I mean, the flip also doesn't help you in a Spellslinger deck, right? Because you have to cast a permanent spell to
Trigger it. Yeah.
discover.
Yeah.
Oh,
bad
I mean,
in-
it's still
bad in
ramp, but-
Spellslinger.
God, descend and what is it? The other mechanic that's exactly the same.
Descended.
Descended.
Fathomless
I-
Descent?
So descended counts the number of permanents in your graveyard. Descend
And-
counts something going into your graveyard.
A permanent.
Yeah, that's a lot of.
So they all
layers.
get wrecked by rest in peace. So if there's a rest in peace out, you're totally wrecked.
Yeah.
But again, the things people don't think about are discard, mill.
Which card?
So if someone if someone mills you on your turn, like it counts towards this. So
Sacrifice.
like self mill cards, or like you faithless looting after you cast this or something, right? Like that helps you.
Yeah.
Okay, Galta, Stampede Tyrant, 8 mana, triple green. 12/12, legendary creature, Elder Dinosaur Trample. When it ETBs, put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield.
Yes.
This
Okay.
is like the Timmiest of Timmy
It's
cards.
is it good?
If you
Is it
cannot-
Timmy?
If you just read this card and you don't smile, there's something wrong. I would be looking for help for you. Like, this is just a pure green goodness card. It's huge, but it's also powerful. Like, it's not even a cast trigger. That's the crazy thing about it. You could blink it, you could reanimate it, you could sneak attack it, you can do whatever, and then boom, as soon as Galta's back on the battlefield, you just dump your hand of all creatures. So if you're in like a creature heavy deck, is this not just like a staple? I think it is.
I honestly, so people love this card and people are going to play a ton of this card, and it is the ultimate Timmy card. I actually think it's a little overrated though. Like I think
No,
I
not
see
even.
this like everyone's top 10 list. This is like way high up on it. Like it's 8 mana and you need to have another creature in your hand. Like, and I do this all the time too. You focus on the absurd thing this card can do. And it can do absurd things when you're going to like cheat this into play and dump your hand. And it's going to be like the coolest game of Commander you ever had. And that's why everyone's going to put it in their deck, because you get that moment. But there's also going to be a lot of games where you like get up to 8 mana and this is the only creature left in your hand. And you're like, okay, like it's kind of still big, I guess. I'll cast it. But so I think it's like, I don't know. I don't think it's quite as good as people think, but it is like, oh, it's going to do some cool things.
Just
Like,
draw more
the upside
cards.
is high.
I mean,
Stop being a coward. Draw more cards.
I love this card in like 60 card formats, but in Commander, I think Seth's probably right, actually. Like,
No.
more often than, unless dude, like, okay,
Come on.
if this is my Commander, why? Right? Like, I'm going into mono green. This is not that good as my Commander. I would rather have normal Galta as my Commander, right? But then like, so in the 99, sure, if you've drawn like 100 cards, then and you for some odd reason haven't played them and decided to keep them in your hand, then that's a lose more, right? Like, as opposed to a win more. And then I don't know if this is like what I entomb. Yeah, okay, Golgari or something like that. You entomb this and then you reanimate it.
Mhm.
I guess, right? Like, that's the only line.
Have you all not seen how much green can draw? Do we not know what Rishker's expertise does? Or Return of the Wild Speaker, Soul's Majesty, the other Garuk Planeswalker that's just like, draw cards equal to the highest power you have. And then you're just like, oh, I draw 12 cards. Like, obviously you're going to be running
this is
all of
Whitmore,
those
right?
cards.
You're at 8 mana and you manage to draw out 15 cards.
Yes.
And then you somehow haven't
then
won. You
Galta.
play the Galta. Like that's
It's easier
So we-
than you think.
So we just got Last March of the Ends, which is 8 mana, but it also draws you a million cards, and then it has the same ability, right? Essentially, like you can put any number of creatures, and it can't be countered.
You have to cast it. This is an ETB. There's more fun things you can do with this, I think. I don't know. You're all being
That's
lame.
true.
I think this is a trap. I'm the biggest Timmy here. I love original Galta. Original Galta is like a million times better than this. Like you have to reanimate this, and if you do, there are better things to be reanimating. Is there not? Like, is this really what you're gonna be reanimating if you could reanimate? And like, yeah, you can blink it and get more value, but what? Just end the game on your first reanimation. Like, why are you like? Are you gonna entomb Galta and do this?
Well,
So I think it's a bit Winmore.
it's definitely Winmore.
I don't even know what
but,
you would drop in. Like, isn't Galta like one of your best? If you play Galta, like, you're dropping in something that's better than a Galta. Like, what is it?
Look, I
Another
don't think
the
this is
other
a better
Galta.
commander. I think this is a 99 card for sure. Because if you just like say, hey, my commander's Galta Stampede Tyrant, you're just basically begging the blue player to just counter it and you're sad. But like if you have it in the 99, I think it's actually legit. It's not bad. It's just a 12-12 Trampler, all right? You got to put some respect on the name.
Hit him with 2
Oh.
Galtas.
I have a Galta deck.
don't-
I own a Galta deck. This is going into
Yeah,
the Galta
like-
deck.
Wait, yeah, you own a Galta deck. So
Yeah, 2
what-
mana 12-12 trample or 8 mana 12-12 trample.
Look, I'm not saying okay. Maybe it's a little bit of a trap, but you still got to run it. All right. What would
It's so
your
fun.
kid self? What
Oh,
would
yeah,
your kid
it's
self?
fun.
Look,
And remember, the point of commander is doing cool things, and this card does cool things. When it comes down to it, a lot of people play because they forget the 5 games where this was stuck in their hand doing nothing, but they get a really good story out of the 6 game where they dump their entire hand, and like that's what people play commander for. So I think even though it's not going to be that consistent and it's a trap and win more, like it still does what a lot of people want to be doing in the format. So I think that's why it ranks highly on my list, even though like I think from a like more spiky perspective, it is win more and it's a trap, but it doesn't matter. We're playing commander. We're not playing modern or whatever. Like we're trying to do the cool thing and have that story to tell our friends.
How do you fill your hands with big things? Like you could like Worldly
cards.
Tutor, that's 2 mana. Is there some tutor like the
I mean,
3
I think-
mana elf thing that tutors a big creature into your hand?
I think your dream is you like resolve this after the Rich Car's expertise or the last
Yeah.
part. You play that huge card draw spell and you have 20 cards in hand and then you put this
Yeah.
into play and you dump your whole hand and it's like the
Yeah.
coolest thing. Like I think that's how people will play this. Yeah.
Okay. and then you dump your like Coco combo onto the battlefield to win the game.
Yeah.
And then
your 2
Crim-
card
and then-
6 mana combo. Yeah.
No, and then you pass the turn and Crim farewells and that's
Yeah.
that's that.
I mean, that's the ideal situation, but
Actually, Crim plays that horrible black card that destroys all creatures that enter the
yo,
battlefield.
hey, that's not horrible, and that's
It's
not,
a
that's
great
not
card.
where- that's
What
not
is
what's
this
up for
land
debate
here
right
over
now.
here?
'Cause that card is gas, and we
All
know
right.
that card's gas.
Oger Tack, Deepest Foundation, 4 white, 6/6 legendary god. Vigilance. If 1 or more creature tokens would be created under your control, 3 times that many are created instead. When it dies, return to the battlefield tapped and transformed. The backside is a land that taps for white. 3 mana tap. Activate only if you attacked with 3 or more creatures this turn, and only as a sorcery, it transforms back to the other side.
You
One
were
thing I know
saying
about commander players is they love tripling. They love
Yeah.
tripling things. Go ahead, Tomer.
Well, you were saying, oh, Galata's a trap, blah, 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 blah. Well, I think the exact same thing applies to Oger Attack, and I still love it to death. It's triple. Triple the token.
Triple.
3
It's
times.
amazing.
Did you know?
Okay, so what? Whatever.
3
It's
times.
overpriced, blah, blah. It's not going to do anything half the time. It's very inconsistent. I get it. It's triple. I love it. It's so cute.
We need a
I think it's
quadrupler.
Because you play it, everyone's like, "Oh my god, we gotta kill it." They kill it, it flips into a land. Like you didn't get no value out of it, and then you have 3 attackers. You can flip it back, so it's this persistent threat. So the fact that it comes back, because like you play Mondrak, people try to kill it. That you play Anointed Procession, people try to kill it. This thing you need to exile. Otherwise, it becomes a land with the threat of coming back. So I actually think this is not as Winmore as people are billing it as. And it's just this like
No.
constant threat that's sitting there. No?
But Galta has it gets the value immediately. I think the main problem with the lane side is that attacking with 3 things is going to be very difficult if the most common answer to your board state is just going to be like, okay, I wipe the board. And then what are you going to be attacking with? You have to slowly play some creatures and then eventually attack with the creatures and then you get it back. But like attacking with 3 creatures is kind of big. It's a go wide
But
strategy
your
though.
tokens
So.
deck. Your
Or you
tokens
ramp.
deck. So it's not as unreasonable as it is for a normal deck, right?
I think it's as reasonable as getting good value out of Galta, all right?
Galta's
both
not
good
good.
people.
We're comparing
They're
this to
both
Mondrak
good
and Anointed
folks.
Procession.
So the problem with this compared to the other versions, I think, is specifically creature tokens. That's the downside here compared to Mondrak or Doubling Season, Anointed Procession. That doesn't mean it's a bad card. Like, this can still do, like, imagine that Bernard deck that Krim played where you're making, the food golem. Like, this is going to be ridiculous in a deck like that, or any deck that's building creature tokens. But some of the shenanigans that you get with Mondrak of, like, making a ridiculous amount of treasure tokens or something, like, that's not going to work with this. But I think this card's actually, like, it protects itself by turning back into a land. I don't think it's that hard to flip back around. And it's another one of those cards that I think I agree with Tomer that it's probably a little Winmore-y, but it's just going to do such spectacular things while it's on the battlefield. Like, 3 is a huge number, like tripling your tokens, and it stacks with Mondrak. Why wouldn't you just play this and Mondrak and the Anointed Procession? And you're just going to, like, really go off.
I mean, I love it. It's like, see, this has appeal, right? Like, I like this. I don't know what it is. Like, Galta, like, this
You're
part
not a
is sick.
Timmy. You're
I-
so
oh,
high.
One of them's a green card, one of them's a white card.
okay.
What a
That
puzzle
actually might
this
be
is.
it.
What a puzzle this is that you don't get the green card.
Regardless of that, right? Like, look, I like Galta in 60 card, right? I like, it's not like I'm out here just hating on Galta. I think Galta's like a super sweet card, but this appeals, right? Why? Because 3 times. Something about it, like you had mentioned it like earlier. I'm not even joking. He said 3 times. That's just cool, like instantly, right? Like, I don't know why. Like, there's definitely a lot better things you could play, but 3 times. That's so sick.
I feel we're in the realm where you can just put any number there now. Like, it could be 10 times.
Anything above
Before,
2.
like if this thing untaps and you get to do it, like, you probably won the game. So you might as well just put whatever ridiculous number you want to put in there. So yeah, I like the 3 times. The 3 times is good.
It's
the 3
it's
times.
Panharmonicon creep, yeah.
If
We're gonna
you're
get
making a-
quadruplers soon.
If you're making a go wide, like a creature token deck, are you ever not running this card? Or are you just auto jamming it?
I thought you guys just said it was overrated. Like,
No, but
that means
it
you're
doesn't
not
matter if
gonna
it's
play it, right?
overrated. I'm just saying, would you
Yes.
not run it?
When I build a go wide token deck, like, I play all the doublers and now the triplers. Now that we have a tripler, like, those are the first cards I had. If I'm playing tokens, of course, Mondrak, Anointed Procession, Doubling Season, like, I'm jamming all of those, and this is on that list too. So yeah, if I'm making creature tokens, why wouldn't I have this in my deck?
I never play these cards, by the way. I'm a believer of the X tokens because, like,
Sweaty.
it's the Door of Destinies theory. If you slap this down, everyone tries to murder you immediately, and like you can never get off. Like, they see it coming, and then you just get destroyed. So I am of the just ramp, end of turn, White Sun Zenith kill you versus layering down these anthems and doublers, and you're like, oh, wait till I untap, guys, you're all dead, right? And then everyone's like, oh boy, like we better get rid of him immediately, right? So,
You know what?
6 mana, hope the turn passes around you without you getting touched is a big ask.
Doable.
Flash
I don't
this in
care.
or something,
Doable,
it would be a
baby.
I don't care. I'm still doing it.
I would rather
You know how many
die
protection
in
spells you got
style
in
than
those
win
colors?
with Pilgrim's
Yeah.
Eye.
What am I playing? CDH over here? Am I getting
Yeah.
sweaty over
White
here?
Sun
Like,
Zenith.
I can't play the fun cards. No, I'm still playing the fun cards. Although I have been cutting like parallel lives and stuff in like super creature heavy decks because they're not creatures. And I like the fact that this is a 6/6 Vigilancer. You know, like, okay, people are going to target me. Well, they better kill the thing because attacking me is going to be a little bit harder because I have a 6/6.
Yeah, and you get creature tutor, so you can tutor it up with
Yes.
creature, Elidrami's Call or Worldly Tutor or whatever. Yeah,
What did you call it? Eldrazi's call?
Eldrami's
Edamame.
Call. Yes.
Edamami's call? I don't think Seth
Yeah.
knows edamame yet.
Okay.
I'm teaching him edamame.
Who?
Even though we had no consensus on those cards, those were the consensus. Most people would agree are reasonable top cards from the set.
Have
And
we
people
just
are
been
excited to play.
50-50 down the middle on all these cards? I just want to
Pretty
say right
much.
now.
I
Dousing
think so,
Divine-
actually.
Actually, wait. No, Brass is
Wait,
not
we were
grinding.
3-1 on the last card at least. We were all like, hell yeah. And then Richard's like, no, I don't like fun.
No, I think it's actually pretty good. I just personally don't play it.
Okay.
Yo, y'all having fun over there? I hate it.
Yeah, I know. Who wants to have fun? We're here. We're just gonna pay 6 mana and get swords, so it doesn't even flip into a land. Don't even have the respect to Path to Exile it.
He just gets
okay.
flogged.
That's true. Yeah, it doesn't matter how many tokens you get.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
fuck.
Bog mana. All these cards
Fog.
suck.
All right, here is my sleeper pick for the set: Echoing Deeps. It's a land cave. You may have Echoing Deeps enter the battlefield tapped as a copy of any land in a graveyard, except it's a cave in addition to its other types. Tap to add colorless. So it's a colorless untapped land, and you can have it enter taps and then copy a graveyard land. It does not work with MDFCs and like these new flipped things sitting in the graveyard because they're the front side. They're not a land in the graveyard. But Vesuva meta, Thespian Stage meta, Echoing Deeps meta, and we were just talking about how you need to play strip mine now because of all these ridiculous lands. Now you can strip mine them yourself and like copy them with Echoing Deeps. Worst
But
case,
the
it's a fetch
land is the
and you fetch your
backside.
thing.
The land of these.
Well, not that one.
transformed
No. So yeah, you can't use those ones, but you can like hit someone's coffers now because you're also running strip mine.
How far below like Vesuva Thespian Stage is this, Richard? Do you think? Like, I'm curious because you play those in every deck, right? Those are like just the Richard staples. Like, is this on that list? Is this a every decker?
I think it's an every decker because it's an ETB untapped,
An
so you can make
every
it come into
decker.
play untapped if you want. So I'm
No,
gonna
it's
try
about
it
the
every deck, but again, there's a threshold of how many of these lands I can play. Like, I just copy like naked Vesuvas because that's all I'm running, and they're all useless.
Yo, that
But
hold on.
this
You're
is
not
every
giving that
decker
enough
to
credit.
me.
This is a
Because worst
card
case,
that-
it's a fetch land or something, right? Like you can have it be a terrible Triome Guildgate kind of thing. But the upside is someone's coffers is sitting there, someone's cradle is sitting there, someone's like literally anything Maze of It is sitting there. Better if you self-mill, better if you crop rotation yourself, you can do that. Better if Sword of Body and Mind is in your meta and people just getting milled for no reason.
So you're saying
I
that
really
that
like
sword
this.
has synergies with this? God, that
So-
card's so broken. So many things are gonna make Sword of Body and Mind good, even more good.
for the person playing it, yeah. I could see it like I could see myself playing this card if I was like Lord Windgrace and I have like I can put a lot of lands in the graveyard. Ideally a Field of the Dead. You know, you get a Field of the Dead in the graveyard and you copy it with Echoing Deeps and you get back the Field of the Dead. But like I think this card in most situations is not good. It's so the floor is it's a tapped colorless land. The
Or
ceiling
untapped.
is it's wait,
Untapped
what?
colorless.
You may have it enter
So
the
you can
battlefield
choose to
tapped.
have it enter as an untapped colorless or have it enter tapped as a copy
Yeah.
of something in the graveyard.
Okay, so untapped
So
colorless,
it's still untapped.
still not great, and then tapped version of something better. But like you have to actively put lands in the graveyard. The only lands that are going to go into the graveyard naturally are like fetch lands sometimes, and we don't. That's not even a guarantee. And you really have to build around it. I don't know. This doesn't seem very good.
I mean, the build around is put a strip mine in your deck.
Wait,
No, but then you have to
strip
wait.
mine
You
meta.
have to hope that you find the strip mine, and then hope that you blow up something that's good, and then you're down.
What do you
land
want
because
for a
you strip
free
mine.
value off your land? Like, downside is land, upside is like infinite mana with coffers. Like, yeah, it's
It's
a
a
land
colorless
spot. Like,
land. It
it's an
could've been a
MDFC. It's a
basic.
free roll. It's a free
It could have
roll.
been a basic.
I don't
I don't
know. I'm not as high on it as Richard. Like, I don't know if this is a card that I would like. I also now play Thespian Sage and Vesuva a lot. I'm not sure if this is part of that same package. I might be like a little bit more on the Tomer side in the sense that like I want to plan for getting things into the graveyard. I think if I'm like self-milling or if I'm like playing land destruction effects or something, then this card's really, really good. Maybe it's even better than that.
You guys, wait.
I
You
am-
guys gonna play Ode Your Tack, triple your tokens, and I'm like, don't worry, boys. 4 Maze of Ifs.
Please no. Please
Fuck
no.
meta.
Again, the main
4 Maze of Ifs.
Fuck
What you got? Okay. Next card. Thousand Moon Smithy. 4 mana white, double white, legendary artifact. When the ETBs create a white gnome soldier artifact creature token with this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts and or creatures you control. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may tap up to 5 untapped artifacts and or creatures. If you do, transform Thousand Moon Smithy. Backside is a land. Tap to add a white. If you cast an artifact or creature spell using mana produced by barracks, create a white gnome soldier token. So this is
So-
like mega construct.
Yeah. So this is my pick. We're all aware the constructs are very powerful, right? Like that's not an unknown at this point. This is a super construct because it also counts creatures that aren't artifacts. So it just 4 mana, you make a construct, not very good by itself, but then pre-combat main phase, you just have to wait a turn cycle, tap 5 untapped creatures and or artifacts, which is pretty simple to do as well, and then you get a legendary artifact land, and then you're just making it's a land, so it's now that it ramps you, but then it also makes a construct every single time you're casting a spell, basically, and it's also an artifact itself. So if you have any ways of untapping artifacts, you can make silly amounts of constructs. It's like if you're in an artifact deck, or I guess if you could be in a go wide creature deck even too. Is this not like just silly? Seems silly to me.
This card's I think this card's kind of ridiculous. I think being an artifact on the back's a drawback, actually. I think that's intended to keep its power in check a little bit, that you can blow it
Easier to
up with
blow
a
up.
Disenchant or Vandal Blast or a Farewell or any of that stuff. So I think that's actually part of it, but the card's kind of crazy, right? I also think of it like a construct, and I think that really undersells it because you don't have to be an artifact deck, as you mentioned. Like, this is amazing in like Kadria or Jetmir or with the new white Osier Talk, whatever god we were just talking. Like, anything that's going wide, you don't have to be an artifact deck. So it goes in the artifact decks, it goes into go wide creature decks, and it's going to be absurd in any of those. Like, the creatures this make is so big. It reminds me of the red one a little bit, which is like, yeah, sure, you're not cascading each turn, but just making a free like 10-10 or 20-20 every turn, like that's going to close out the game very quickly. Card's absurd. Absurd.
The dream. Ode Your Tack into Thousand Moon Smithy on an empty board.
Yeah,
Give
that-
you- And we give you 3 4/4s, and then they
Oh,
grow every
God.
time.
Yes. And this is also
Interesting.
2 artifacts towards flipping it. So you only need 3 other artifacts because you have it itself and the token it makes. So you're actually like not that unrealistic that you could be flipping this on turn 5 the turn after you play it in a lot of decks.
I think this card is very good, but there is a thing that I kind of have a nitpick with it.
It's a
Why?
gnome.
Why does it make gnomes? Seriously, why does it?
Oh, I was just joking.
Wow.
no, like genuinely, I
What's
don't.
wrong with gnomes?
You don't like gnomes, Grim?
No, it's not that I don't like gnomes. It's more of that I wish it made golems because I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
This set has actually
Yeah.
upgraded my Bernard deck by a lot because there's just golem makers left and right. So,
Mm.
because
Why are they gnomes? Like I always associate.
They wanted a new
gnomes-
type because you can't use constructs because they care about artifacts and creatures, and golems are just like these vanilla creatures, so you can't use those either. So they had
But
to. make
gnomes
a
are
new-
just like a short race in D&D, you know?
Shouldn't it have
gnomes
technically been-
before.
Bunny tokens because of Bunny Corn or whatever. Doesn't that have the same ability? Like, isn't this actually Regal Bunny Corn tokens? That is
Those are
making?
permanent, Seth. These are
Okay.
artifacts.
I don't know.
So that's our nitpick. The type is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about all I.
They're also
got.
soldiers, if that's relevant, like for soldier decks. So
Yeah.
and they're also artifacts. So 1 Vandal Blast and you're done for. This, the land, all the tokens go. So like everything
Done.
goes. Everything's an artifact
This
here.
the menace that is Vandal. I haven't seen a Vandal Blast in so long, by the way. It's just like Farewell now these days. Or even Austere Command. I still see Austere Command. I haven't seen a Vandal Blast in so long.
Vandal Blast. What card is that? Is that new?
I haven't seen it.
All right. Next up, we have a pair of 3 mana rocks. We can guess who chose these ones. So the first one is Sunbird Standard, 3 mana, tap, add 1 mana of any color. It has an ability, craft with 1 or more 5. So that's 5 mana, exile this artifact, exile 1 or more permanents you control and or cards from your graveyard. Return this card transformed under its owner's control. Backside is a star artifact creature bird construct, flying vigilance haste. Power and toughness are equal to the number of colors among the cards exiled used to craft it. Tap it for each color among the exiled cards used to craft it. Add 1 mana of that color. So 3 mana rock, you craft it for 5 mana, exile a 5C card. It becomes a 5/5 flying vigilance haste that you can tap to add 5 mana.
Hold on, I'm trying to still find this. It's just you just
There's
kinda
a lot of text. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. While
like-
you're thinking about that, when you're thinking about that, Eye of Odger tag, tap to add 1 mana of any color. Craft with 2 that share a card type. 6. So 6 mana. And then the backside is it enters a battlefield tapped. As it enters, choose a card type shared among the 2 exiled cards used to craft it. Tap it. The next spell you cast this turn of the chosen type can be cast without paying its mana cost. So Seth, you like 3 mana rocks.
I
With
do.
upside.
I
Is
do.
this the
So-
best 3 mana rock with upside?
I mean, I don't know if it's the best. The Celestis is still pretty sweet, but I'm actually like, okay, so Sunbird Standard, you pretty much got to be 5C, right? Like, I think this is a mana rock that has enough upside that in a 5C deck, I'm pretty excited for. If I'm 4C, 3C, or less, not playing it, not worth it, not enough upside. But in 5C, you get the mana rock. You essentially can craft it and generate a mana because you can tap it itself. So you can, well, I guess it doesn't generate a mana because then it would be tapped, but you can craft it for free. So you spend 5, you'll get 5 mana back from it, and you can get an attack with this hasty creature. And if it lives a turn, then it's generating 5 mana each turn. So I have to think that this is worth it in a 5-color deck. I'm actually more excited about Eye to me seems like kind of ridiculous that you have a 3 mana rock that crafts with a couple of random things from your graveyard and then lets you cast something for free each turn, which is a very, very like ridiculously effective. We've seen Omniscience and Fill decks just like take over games. This is only 1 spell a turn and it does have the restriction of needing like to be a specific type of spell, but still in a deck that's built around artifacts or enchantments or creatures or planeswalkers, like isn't this a really, really strong mana rock? Like personally, I think I'm more excited about Eye than I am for Sunbird Standard, just because I feel like I can play it in more decks. Sunbird's got to be 5C. I think you want to be like kind of built around a card type to some extent, but in that context, it's really, really strong.
I think I'm a believer. This is
Yeah,
after finally
see.
catching up to everything that it does. Yeah, like you went through all of that. I needed to see it for myself because, good lord. All right, yeah, no, I think this card's pretty cool. This is a pretty solid 3 mana rock, right? Like, yeah, I'm in love. I'm in love. I think this. I'm buying in on this, especially at an uncommon.
Okay. So Sunbird Standard, I actually like a lot, but it can't just be a 5-color deck, just any 5-color deck. It has to be a 5-color deck with permanents, like permanents that are probably like multicolor, right? Because you need to have them either on the battlefield, which kind of sucks, or in the graveyard, more spicy because you're not using them for anything else at that point. You want to like exile like a 5-color, like you want to have like 5, like you want to be like a multicolored matters 5-color deck. If you're just like, you know, a 5-color deck, but you have like a lot of like 1-color permanents, or you don't even have that many permanents, and it's not going to do a whole lot there.
So you can craft with multiple cards at the same time.
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously,
like,
it gets harder, but you can choose like a Demir
Yes.
card, a Gruul card, and a white card or something, and then get 5C. But
but
obviously,
a multicolor
if
deck
it's
makes it
a single
multi-
5-color card is much easier to accomplish.
It's also worth mentioning, even though this card's worded kind of confusingly, you can craft with spells too. You can craft with any card. So you can exile a couple of charms from your graveyard or like Niv Mizzet spells. So it's permanents on the battlefield or any cards in your graveyard. So it's permanents and or. So you can actually exile a couple of charms from your graveyard or whatever, ionize. So it's even a little better than that maybe, that you don't actually really need permanents exactly.
So it
Did
can
we
work in like
misunderstand
the
craft?
Lucky
so craft
Charm
is
deck.
permanence. Oh, so you can craft stuff on the battlefield as well.
Yes.
Each in all the craft cards are worded differently. So some
Oh,
Wait,
some are only
goodness.
artifacts, some are only
Okay.
this.
Oh
This
my
one's
God.
any card, yeah.
so I do think you still want to be multicolor matters, because like if you're just have like a bunch of single color cards, then it's going to be really difficult to consistently drop it. But then it immediately refunds that mana. The problem with Eye of Ajatek, and I feel it's almost a little bit of a trap card, is that it's 3 mana and then it's an additional 6 mana to craft it. You have to have the 2 cards that share a card type. And the problem with it is it enters tapped. So you do all that. You pay the 6 mana, you find the 2 cards, you do the whole crafting purpose, and then it enters tapped, and you have to wait a turn cycle for your opponents to allow you to untap with it and get the value. Much like Osher Tack or whatever, where it's like, oh yeah, big red flag, everybody deal with this before I untap with it. Same thing with the observatory. If it entered untapped, I would be much more on board with it. But like you spend the 3 mana, then you spend the 6 mana, and you exile the 2 things, and then you have to wait in a whole turn cycle for it to untap. That's kind of ugh.
That's
you
fair.
can only craft as a sorcery, so you can't end of turn craft and then untap and do it. So you have to tap out, cross your fingers, untap, as opposed to Omniscience, where you somehow get Omniscience into play, you can start firing off spells immediately.
Or Galta, you just immediately
I'm
get
mixed on this card.
The upside. It's so high.
I'm much higher on Sunbird Standard in 5 colors because you get so you can use it immediately. So it refunds itself immediately, and you got a body, and you can smack someone with it.
That's true.
Will you make it around? Will you make it around to untap and then have something useful in hand to fire off? But a free spell every turn is disgusting. Imagine Phil doing this. You know, like a 10 mana spell coming off the top here for free is ridiculous. So,
And the other thing about both these
$3.99.
cards is, like, the floor is high. It's a 3 mana rock. So worst case, you never bother to spend 5 or 6 to craft it, and it just makes mana every turn, and you play normal game plan. So
okay, is this what is that Strixhaven card where you play Quidditch called?
Strixhaven Stadium.
Wait, Strix Stadium. Yeah.
Stadium.
Oh.
Stadium. Is it like, oh, it's all free upside? No, you play it and get murdered immediately. Like, is this one of those cards where it's not actually a mana rock? It's something that just puts a giant bullseye on you and you die? Like,
that
it is very scary. Who's gonna let you untap with this?
I might actually be. I was very high on Strixhaven Stadium when it was spoiled, and I learned very quickly that it's actually really bad in most decks because you just get murdered. I might actually be that similar effect, and in some ways, like, maybe worse because it enters tapped, so you have to wait that turn for everyone to like smack you around in hopes that you get to use it. So yeah, maybe it actually is too scary for what it does. You might be right. Sunbird, I don't think is like that though. Like Sunbird is not that same scary effect, right? What are you gonna do about it anyway?
Yeah, it's definitely not a Strixhaven Stadium level of like aggro. At least I don't think so.
It's a fun card though. I don't know. You sometimes
that
you
it
gotta
is.
just YOLO it, you know?
All right, last card, Roaming Throne, 4 mana, artifact creature, Golem, 4/4, Ward 2. When it enters a battlefield, choose a creature type. It is the chosen type in addition to its other types. If a triggered ability of another creature you control of the chosen type triggers, it triggers an additional time.
This is sick, right? Like I
What do you do
absolutely.
with this?
What
So
can't
you have
do
to
with it?
copy.
What don't you
have
do
to
with
copy
Yeah.
a creature type that triggers. Like what is like the most common or brain dead use of this?
Oh, it does. If you just read like the most played commanders, it works with essentially every single one of them. Like Atraxa double proliferates, Lathril double ups your elves, Eureka double triggers, Ishin double triggers, Wilhelt double zombies, Miram double dragons, Edgar. Like it works with everything. Like this is a Panharmonicon, but it works on triggered abilities. It works on upkeep abilities, end step abilities, combat damage. Like It works with everything. So yeah, you got to be built around a creature type most likely to make it worth it. But every time I like try to build a deck around this card, it literally just works with everything. Like I think if you took any goblin deck, vampire deck, like choose a creature type and threw this in it, you're gonna get value out of it, even if you don't build around it at all. Like you have so many things that are just naturally gonna do what this card wants. You can throw it in any one of those decks.
So
Yeah.
it costs twice as much as Harmonic Prodigy. I love Harmonic Prodigy. I put it in every wizard deck, well, I haven't played a shaman deck, but if I played a shaman deck, it would go in there too. You pay double, but like it's still worth it. I'm gonna pay double for Harmonic Prodigy every time, and it comes with ward. That's nice, and
Yeah,
it's
makes
also
some
the chosen
protection.
creature type as well when it enters the battlefield, so it benefits from synergies. This card is just so good. It's so good.
It also
I love it.
like, yeah, the ward is so nice on top of that. Like, it's like a lot of people realize that, yo, ward does creep
You gotta
up
get
on
rid
you,
of
so
it.
don't sleep on ward.
Yeah.
Ward is it's 4 mana. So if you're on the play or your opponents have EDB tap land, they can't play the 3 mana removal to remove this. So if you can punish people for not playing Swords to Plowshares but are playing Generous Gift because
Yep.
they can't muster up the 5 mana to remove this. So
And even if
is
they
this
can
card
remove
like
it,
dumb? It
Yes.
literally synergizes with everything, and
That's
not only that,
so
but it
good.
synergizes with the rest of your deck because it is like a changeling type thing as well. Like it's the creature type as well. So it's a vampire or whatever in your vampire deck. In addition to doubling your triggers, in addition to being a very strong on curve threat, like a 4 mana 4/4 at Ward 2. And then it's colorless, so it goes in every deck. Is this like the one ring of creature decks? Like it
It's
just
kind of
goes
like the
everywhere
arcane
and it's like
sign-
stupid.
Yeah. It's the arcane signet of creature decks, I think, where it's just like you'd have to have a very specific reason not to run it. But like I think just naturally a lot of creature decks are just gonna have a lot of triggered abilities that you want to double up on. It's just how it is.
I mean, I do not have any doubt that this will be the most played card from the set. Like it's colorless, so you can play in so many different options. When we look at like the stats a year from now, I would be very surprised if this was not the number one most played card out of this entire set. And that's saying something because this set is ridiculous overall. It's such a high power level set, and I think this is the card that's gonna actually be the most played. So yeah, I think this is like kind of a dumb card, but it's dumb in like it's a Panharmonicon. It's dumb in a fun way.
Dumb.
It's dumb in the like double up the triggers and like do the cool fun thing. So I think it's very very powerful, but I don't think it's like problematic in the way that some other like
So
you know
let me
one
clarify
dumb
some
cards
rules
are.
questions for you. So I play this, I choose Squirrel, I draw double the amount of cards with Toski. Is that correct?
yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
I choose humans, I Gray Merchant. I
Yes.
double Gray Merchant everyone.
Well,
Is
Grey
that
Merchants
correct?
is a zombie.
Is Gray Merchant a human?
zombie.
But
It's a
yes,
zombie,
if you
sorry,
choose
zombie.
zombie, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cards dumb.
Bertigard.
Correct.
If you name human in Bertigard, you get double the pumping, I think. If I know what
You mean
Bertigard
Baragon,
does.
Seth? Yes.
Baragon. Oh my god.
Baragon,
Double
yeah.
It also triggers the Baragon because it's a human. Yes.
And then your Mentor of the Meek triggers twice or whatever, however you're drawing cards. Yeah. It's good stuff.
It
That's
is
good
the
stuff.
One Ring. It is.
Like, it's
you
a
don't-
little
like
bit.
that set. You can play it as a weird background card. You can have no creature type synergies in your deck. You just choose your commander, copy your commander, and then go to town. Like that.
Well, like
that is like
when
the
I was-
floor of this.
when I was playing Jaleva, which is it just happened to be a wizard, I would run Harmonic Prodigy because I really liked Jaleva's triggered ability as my commander. I didn't have a wizard something. I just ran it because it doubled the trigger. I think Roaming Throne, yeah, it's 4 mana, whatever, instead of 2, but it has ward, and it's if the trigger is good enough, then yes, you don't have to go for a full creature deck. If your commander's triggered ability is just good enough, but if you do have a lot of triggered abilities on the same creature type, then it's fine. Like just imagine Eureka, you like turn 2 Eureka, and then like turn 4 you drop Roaming Throne, and all you have double the ninja triggers.
Oh, that's so
fun.
good.
Fun.
That's so good.
Good times.
All right. So those are the 10 cards we're hyped about for this set. We got some pretty strong cards this set. It didn't really fall off in power level as we were going through there. There's plenty of good cards that we had to cut that didn't make the list. Let us know in the comments what you're hyped about. Anything we may have missed. Any cool combos. And I want to know, is Galta Stampede Tyrant a Timmy card, or is it good? Are we all playing it because we like Smashy Smashy, or is it actually good?
Timmy cards
Why
can
not
be
both?
good. Timmy cards
Why
can
not
be
both?
good. Yeah.
Like original Galta is a Timmy card that's extremely, extremely strong. And then there's like the Richard special of like what is like that 10 mana 10/10 that makes a 10/10 token. Like I love that card, but I'm not gonna pretend it's good.
Oh yeah, Eldrazi something.
Yeah, the Eldrazi twin thing that I love,
Sure.
but that is so
Desolation
Timmy card.
Twin.
Yeah, that's like a Timmy card, right?
That's
So
a
yeah,
fun
which
card.
one is this? Which
That's
one?
value.
is
Definitely a
Galta?
Timmy card.
Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you all back next week.